Hi guys, so I thought I'd jump on video and answer some of your questions that you had for me about my business and what I've learned in the last 2 years being a slow fashion designer during a pandemic, but also becoming a mum at the same time. It's all kind of happened at once. So one of the main questions is, when did you know it was time to jump from my full-time job into my business? And basically it got to a point, I was essentially a women's wear designer for one of the biggest department stores in Australia, and it kind of got to the point where, you know, the terms like slow fashion and sustainable were popping up everywhere. They were just little buzzwords and I didn't know much about it. And as soon as I started doing my research, I kind of realized that we weren't doing that where I was working. And the more and more that I researched and thought about it, I was just like, this is just crazy. Like, of course there's rules and contracts in place to ensure that there's no child labor, there's no excessive working, but what's not sustainable about big companies and big brands like that is like they're making tens and thousands of the same thing, and a lot of synthetic fabrics, a lot of overseas travel in terms of the fibers are grown, where they're milled and turned into fabrics, then where those fabrics are treated, then where those fabrics are going to be manufactured and then eventually brought to Australia. So there was a lot of learning for me around that kind of stuff, and I just got to a point in my job that I couldn't deal with that anymore. Like, I wanted to be part of the solution, not the problem. From the time that I started making clothes at home to, you know, getting little custom orders from friends or family, to then actually turning it into my own business while working full-time, I think it probably took about a year and a half. And yeah, so it was kind of a mix of getting a few custom orders that were kind of under my belt, and I knew that I had that set amount of income, as well as me mentally getting to a point where I just couldn't really justify, you know, working for a business like that anymore, just, you know, ethically. Question 2, how did you find a manufacturer? Originally I was making everything myself. Obviously starting out, you want to reduce your costs as much as possible. Well, I did. So, you know, I was working way more hours than I was in my full-time job. Yeah, essentially just sewing and trying to make as much profit as I could, minus materials and expenses. But I got to a point where I needed to delegate. So I trialed my first collection with a manufacturer in Australia, and I actually found her on Instagram. It was kind of weird. Like, I was thinking about manufacturing, and this studio, her name's Vanessa Galone, she just started following me on my Instagram account, and it was so bizarre because it was the same day that I was starting to really think about that I wanted to manufacture locally. And yeah, and so we went from there and started the process, and she was incredible. So I've manufactured 2 collections through her, and she was great. And then I think to reduce my costs again, and because, you know, it is very expensive to manufacture in Australia, as well as getting fully organic materials, sometimes locally milled materials, it ends up just absolutely blowing out your cost price and therefore your retail price, because, you know, you still need to be making a profit. So I wanted to try finding and working with ethical manufacturers overseas who I found on Instagram, which was amazing. But it was more through networking with women who are doing a similar thing to me. So building that kind of friendship connection and then sharing those contacts. So I think everyone can hold their little black book of suppliers and, you know, fabric suppliers, manufacturers very close to them, because they don't want those people getting booked out. So then when they share them with other people, but yeah, I'd suggest just like following a lot of people who are doing a similar thing to you and build that relationship with them. So you first of all support each other, and second of all, you can actually share contacts, share fabric suppliers, and help each other out. Yeah, that's a tip. Question number 3, what did fashion school courses not teach you that would have been really helpful? My course was very practical. So I did a lot of sewing, lots of pattern making, grading, cutting, tailoring, lots of very big heavy focus on fabrics and fibers. lots of fashion illustration, not so much on the business end of things, which would have really helped me. I didn't study fashion business. I studied fashion design and technology. So that was probably my fault. But I would have loved to have learned more about entrepreneurship, I think. I really think that that's probably going to be a much more popular subject at unis and TAFEs going forward for a lot of people, because the reality is the typical workplace isn't as common as it was before, especially now with people working from home. They've realized that they can try and do their side hustle and make a bit of money from it, and then that can potentially turn into their full-time job, like me. So I think I would have loved to have learned more about entrepreneurship. Question number 4. How much was your initial investment to start your business? There was no investment. You hear stories of people getting like $20,000 loans, family loaning them money, all this stuff. First of all, didn't grow up with money, so I don't really understand or know what that's like. I've always worked my butt off to, make a living for myself. I've never been given anything. And that was the same with my business. Like, I was working full-time in my job until I got to a point where I had 3 or 4 custom orders, one of them being, 4 or 5 bridesmaids dresses, another one being a wedding dress. There was just like, I knew that I had income coming in over the next few months. Thinking back now, that's kind of crazy. All it was for me was just knowing that I had these orders locked in, and then I just was winging it. I invested my own money, my own savings into, getting Adobe Suite like Photoshop and Illustrator, getting a new overlocker, getting an industrial machine, getting a dressmaking mannequin, getting a website, all this stuff. Like, I funded myself. That answers your question. Are you clear with your target customer from the start? And if not, what steps did you take to clarify? It's changed and it's been a learning experience for me. I think there's a difference, like when you're studying fashion, it's all very like top line and very trend and like aspirational and all this kind of stuff. But in reality, like the women that are buying my clothes aren't necessarily who I am designing for. Like, it is now, but it wasn't before. I was thinking about like my muses, like Zoe Kravitz and Audrey Hepburn, Sade, like these incredible women who are very stylish but classic. And I think it's more that like I'm aspiring to design for them, and I'm really realizing that my customers are aspiring to kind of look like them as well. But in terms of reality of, yes, the aesthetic is that, the reality is that it needs to be comfortable, it has to have a good fit, it sometimes needs to be breastfeeding friendly, it needs to be easy to wash, all these kinds of things that when you're designing as a student, or when you're designing, as a top level designer, or high fashion or whatever, I don't know whether they think about that as much, because the customer is just meant to like kind of fit in with what the aesthetic is and deal with, it being very tight or very impractical or whatever it is. I think I've learned as I've gone on that it needs to be practical in different aspects to make it, wearable for the customer. What do you wish you knew before you starting your own label? That's such a hard question. Great question, but hard question. I don't know if I would have wanted to know anything, because it probably would have scared me out of making the decision. You think you start your own business to like have more freedom and just like take it a bit more easy, but you end up actually like working more than in my full-time job. I ended up working more doing this. Like there isn't any like off days. I'm starting to implement those now, and like turning my work emails off at night and on the weekend and things like that. But everything that I've learned, you learn from your mistakes. And if it was just all upwards trajectory, that would be great, but you also wouldn't appreciate it as much without having the contrast of those tough times. One of the things that I wish I knew is like to not take things so personal. Like if something doesn't fit, or if a customer isn't happy with whatever it is, obviously make all those offers to change it as much as possible, make sure they're happy. But at the end of the day, I think I tell myself that my clothing and how people react to it, or if they're not happy, they want to return a refund, it's not a personal reflection on me and who I am like inside. But yeah, it is hard when you're creative because your output, your expression, you know, what you're producing, it really feels like a product of who you are. I've been learning and struggling with kind of trying to detach those things from each other. Who I am and what I create are two different things. So yeah. How did you get the confidence to make the jump? Like I said, I had a couple of orders lined up. I'm really lucky. Like, my husband works full time. He's got a very secure job. I have an amazing family to help me if I ever need it. I'm really lucky that I have like a support network around me that not only encourage me to take the jump, but, you know, are there for me and have been there for me in the, you know, of owning your own business. I'm very privileged to have that. Another question, how did you create a following and what marketing techniques did you use? None at all. I would Instagram story and post things that I was really passionate about and excited about and was interested in, and it just happened that slowly over time people who are passionate and interested in the same things find me. But I do find that the posts that I do create that are more based on cost transparency, the realities of owning your own business, being a mum while owning your own business, they seem to be the posts that do the best in terms of engagement. Following, educational posts are really big for me as well. So I think slowly you're gonna just find your niche. I think you just need to post things that you're really excited about, because that's gonna come across in the language that you use, in the energy that you're bringing to the table, to your Instagram stories, and whoever vibes with that is your following. That's like the people that you want to attract. So when you're excited about something or interested in something, post about it, hashtag it, and the right people will find it. Advice to a startup in a different industry that aligns itself with slow production. It's a really, really tough one. I think we're so used to, and I'm so used to, you know, working in the fashion industry in my old jobs. It's just like fast paced. It is like Devil Wears Prada. It is like, you know, eat, sleep, breathe this life where it's just like constantly about more designs, more profit, more ideas, more color, more this, more that. And it's like so hard to not get caught up in that. Even when you go shopping, like you guys, you know, the supermarket or the shopping center, it's just like, buy this, buy that, you know, buy 2, get 10 free. It's like crazy, right? The amount of like consumption. And it's even hard as like a small business owner because, you know, I only have me. You know, I'm doing a lot of things to try and diversify my income, you know, trial different things. But then at the same time, slow fashion is about being more concentrated and focused on craftsmanship, the detail, really considering types of fabrics you're using, considering your customer, all those types of things. I think any advice would just be to, if you can, set up a passive income stream. So I've done my ebook and I'm working on a course at the moment. So then those are things that can kind of tick over in the background that you can then just spend your time taking it slow with the product you're creating, the service you're providing, to make sure that you're listening to your customer, you're getting it right, you're trialing it, taking your time, you know, with me, like with different fittings for different garments, just taking the time to get it right the first time. Yep, I've learned that the hard way. Don't rush, but create those passive income streams to kind of look after you in that meantime, to make that money for you passively while you're kind of working in the background on your product, your service, but doing it in a conscious and slow way and not rushing. So how long did it take to start making an income that you can live off. Still working on this. With any small business, any business, you just go through times like this where you have like, 5-10 great orders and you're killing it that week, that month, and then the next month it's like nothing. So like I said before, this is why I've been trying to create passive income streams so that I'm able to not stress as much, because previously, like going through, those up and downs of income, emotionally and stress wise, it's really hard. So I'm only really learning that now, that I need to have something in the background that's just working for me. And then that takes the stress off in those times of, less income, where I need to be designing and sourcing, sampling, fitting garments to create a collection and not rushing it. There's something working for me in the background. So yeah, I'm working on that right now. And then hopefully that means that with the passive income streams, as well as the lessons that I've been learning over the past year in terms of what my customer actually wants and needs, because I've realized what I actually need and want are basics, and then a couple of fashion pieces, every now and then to work back with it. I'm realizing that now, so I'm in the process of creating that kind of core collection. And yeah, lots of lessons. Anyway, thank you for all the questions. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to keep learning, keep growing, keep listening to my customers. And that's my advice, is like build your space based off what you love, what inspires you, and just keep sharing it as much as you can. And the right people are going to find you. Make friends online. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If you see someone doing something that you want to be doing, ask them, where did you find that canvas? Where did you find that fabric? Where do you get everything manufactured? Where do you get it printed? Because the worst I can say is no, or just like not reply back to you. But the best thing is that a lot of people do. And then you've got contacts and you just keep growing. And then when you're further up, you can help people who are up and coming as well. So it's kind of like this cycle of support. And yeah, like diversifying your income, making sure there's passive things working for you in the background so you can focus on growth, new ideas, new things. And yeah, I hope you like this video, and thanks for watching.